Hello, Dr. Watson and fellow viewers. My name is Chris Vagala. The following video presentation is for class PS 605. This is an end-piece to my essay called Conflict in the South China Sea. Just as if you were on land, on water there are also laws to adhere to. This ongoing conflict between China and its neighbors are a perfect example to explain these laws. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea lays down a comprehensive regime of law and order in the world's oceans and seas, establishing rules governing all uses of the resources they contain. It enshrines the notion that all problems of ocean space are closely interrelated and need to be addressed as a whole. The convention entered into force in accordance with its Article 308 on 16 November 1994, 12 months after the date of deposit of the 60th Instrument of Ratification or Accession. Today is a globally recognized regime dealing with all matters related to the law of the sea. The Senkaku Islands are a small group of islands to what is called Okinawa Prefecture. After Japan's defeat in World War II, Okinawa Prefecture was placed under the administrative control of the United States until June 1971, when Japan and the United States signed an agreement on the reversion of Okinawa to Japan. With this agreement, the area of the United States administered under the Peace Treaty was returned to Japan. Article 3 of the San Francisco Peace Treaty, signed in September 1951, specified the area over which the United States would exercise its administrative rights by giving precise latitudes and longitudes. As the Senkaku Islands were included in the area under the U.S. administrative control, the U.S. military managed the islands as firing ranges. China never objected to the process or terms of the San Francisco Peace Treaty. Article 5 of the treaty mandates that each party recognizes that an armed attack against either party in the territories under the administration of Japan would be dangerous to its own peace and safety, and declares that it would act to meet the common danger in accordance with its constitutional provisions and processes. International law provides coastal states have sovereign rights to the exploration and exploitation of resources in a continental shelf extending as far as 200 nautical miles from the country's coastal baseline. The state can claim an extended continental shelf if it can provide geophysical evidence of a natural prolongation of the continental shelf beyond the 200 nautical mile limit. Extended continental shelf claims are administered by the Commission on Limits of the Continental Shelf, an independent body established pursuant to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. In 1935, a commission appointed by the Chinese government published a list of geographical names for islands in the South China Sea. Prior to that, however, the South China Sea had been known to Chinese fishermen and seafarers for many years. The early history of the Chinese use of the South China Sea and its inlets include accounts of tributes made to the imperial court of various dynasties before the 3rd century AD by barbarians from the southern seas. The term Nanhai, which means southern sea, appeared in the classic poetry book Shi Jing, a publication of the spring and autumn period between 475 to 221 BC, and has remained the standard nickname in Chinese for the South China Sea ever since. In later Chinese dynasties, from the 5th century AD onward, as knowledge of the sea was increasingly corroborated by travelers and other seafarers, references to the southern seas and inland islands became more frequent in geographical and literary works. Furthermore, according to Article 47, Section 6 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea states, if a part of the archipelago waters of an archipelago state lies between two parts of an immediately adjacent neighboring state, existing rights and all legitimate interests which the latter state has traditionally exercised in such waters and all rights stipulated by agreement between those states shall continue and be respected. A fishery pact between China and Japan was signed in November 1997, but remains to be effectuated in the absence of compromise on fishing conditions. The agreement signed by Japanese agriculture, forestry, and fishery ministers Tokichiro Tanazawa and Chinese agriculture minister Chen Yaobang set a neutral fishing zone where each nation's fishing boats can operate without the other country's approval. It also fixed the number of both countries' fishing boats that can operate within each other's 200-mile exclusive economic zones. The neutral zone ranges between 124 degrees 45 minutes east longitude and 127 degrees 30 minutes east longitude in the East China Sea. In Japan's exclusive economic zone, up to 900 Chinese fishing boats will be allowed to operate, but only 600 will be able to fish at the same time, while 317 Japanese boats will be able to operate in the Chinese zone. In January 2013, Beijing issued a new map that shows 130 islands in the East and South China Sea as part of mainland China. This new map is Beijing's new diplomatic tool. In November, it had emerged that in its new biometric passports issued in 2012, Beijing was printing maps that showed the entire South China Sea and Taiwan as part of China. In the latest episode, state-run Xinhua News Agency issued an early morning government statement announcing that China for the first time had inked South China Sea on its new official maps in equal scale to that of the Chinese mainland. At the very end of the statement, and it was mentioned there was a zoomed illustration of the Diaoyu Islands, also known as the Senkaku Islands in Japanese, displaying their positional relations and those of the affiliated inlets with the Chinese mainland and Taiwan. An argument over territory has happened between the United States and Canada in 1981, when each of the two countries claimed overlapping maritime boundaries between Nova Scotia and New England, putting into dispute jurisdiction over about 12,000 square miles in the northeastern third of Georges Bank, among the world's richest fishing grounds. The suggested various possible boundaries are firmly based upon equitable principles of international law. The several methods employed in developing the various lines has been adapted from precedents, either from third-party decisions or from state practice. Instead of adherence to any single method of delimitation, a combination of methods have been used with a view to arriving at an equitable delimitation. The equidistant principle has been employed where appropriate. The method of a perpendicular line has also been applied, not only because it best reflects the theory of coastal frontage, but also because it facilitates the future delimitation of the oceanward area well off Georgia banks up to the limit of the continental rise, which will not be covered by the initial proceedings and decisions. In contrast with the winner-take-all decision that would result from applying a single method of delimitation, an equitable decision arrived at by the concurrent use of combined methods would reduce a possible disparity between the maritime boundary settlement and the allocation of fisheries resources provided for in the fisheries agreement. The hiatus could be further minimized by good faith negotiations for an equitable readjustment in light of the delimitation of the maritime boundary by a third party. Indeed, the equitable maritime boundary, along with a sophisticated program of readjustment of maritime resources, will further contribute to the development of the cooperative management of fishery resources into a comprehensive system of fisheries unitization, and to the expeditious development of the hydrocarbon resources in the disputed area. So I end this paper by saying, in order to prevent a Chinese and Japanese territory dispute from escalating to a much greater magnitude than what it already is, a policy rejuvenation that resembles the 1981 Maine Gulf Pact between the United States and Canada must be done so these arguments in the future are not necessary. Thank you.